everybody. I'm Rose Mitchell with Red Tulip for Parkinson's Awareness. And today we have the honor to talk to Darryn Wright, better known in the Parkinson's community as Punk Rock for Parkinson's. He's an
Yeah.
awesome social media influencer, and we all had the privilege of meeting him in Washington, D.C. at the D.C. Policy Forum, and then again at the World Parkinson's Congress in Phoenix. We kept running into each other, and it was just a natural friendship that developed. And since then, he's kind of a Red Tulip hero. He's been really curious about what we're trying to do to unite the Parkinson's community. So we're just so excited to get to know Darryn better, and especially with his influence on social media and the outreach that he has to, just continue to help us as a community come together. So punk rock. Can I
Yes.
can I call you punk?
Yeah, that's what most people call me. That is, if they see me or I'm on live on TikTok or whatever, it's hey punk this, punk that. And even at WPC and Policy Forum in Washington, D.C., when I hear people that I guess would follow me or whatever, and I didn't know them, they'd be like, punk, punk or Parkinson's.
Yeah,
So yeah.
you kind of stand out. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but
No, I don't know why. I
all
don't
right,
know.
Mr. Punk. But let's go back. Let's go back in time a little bit. Tell us a little bit about you and your diagnosis and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Okay. Well, I'm a old school punk rocker from I guess probably the mid 80s, early 80s. And that's just what I identified with, the type of people I identified with, just that rebel spirit and stuff. So, um, grew up in Idaho, spent born and raised there really for 32 years or so. And then I moved to Texas about 21 years ago um, for different reasons, but that's another story. And I just lived and worked here, and then one day driving home, I started noticing this little tremor in my right foot, and I could move my leg and stop it, and I didn't think much of it. And that went on for a little while, probably 6, 8 months, and then the tremor moved to my right hand also, and it was mainly at night when I was going to bed. It would just bounce on the bed or whatever, and I would move my arm and it would stop, and then a few minutes later it'd come back again. Not really thinking much of it because I was also in a very stressful job. And then it finally started. The tremor started happening often throughout the day. And one night, me and my wife were sitting on the couch watching TV and holding hands, and my hand was tremoring, and she looked over me. She said, "Are your hands kind of bouncing? Are you doing that on purpose?" I said, "No, it's been doing that for a while, you know." And that freaked. She's a nurse, and so she looked over at me and was like, "What?
And you
You
were
didn't
what? You
share
were
any
like
of this with me?"
45?
I would have been 43 at the time,
Oh, wow. Sorry, go ahead.
and so of course she immediately got into my primary care doctor, and then he referred me to a neurologist, and within a 6 month process of going through different MRIs and DAT scan and that kind of stuff, she ultimately diagnosed me with Parkinson's I was 44 by then, and April 22nd, 2015, a date I will probably never forget.
The Parkinson's Awareness Month.
Yeah, oh, I know. Yeah, and I didn't even know that, of course. I mean, I knew very little about Parkinson's other than, I was already a big Michael J. Fox fan growing up with him on
Yeah,
TV and
80s.
the movies and stuff. And then I knew he had Parkinson's, but of course I didn't know anything about it. And then so yeah, when it affected me, it was pretty wild. I was like, I mean, it came out of nowhere, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
44. Yes,
Hmm.
it's not what you expect at all. Thank goodness your wife is a nurse and had the wherewithal to understand something wasn't right. And
Yeah.
you have her in your corner. That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
what literally was going through your mind when you heard the word Parkinson's?
At that point, when on that day when I went in for the final kind of, retest results and all that, and I felt relief at that point because I finally could put a name to this thing that I was dealing with. Kind of going through the testing and stuff. I was, digging online a little bit, about tremors and stuff, and me and my wife were reading material together and stuff like that. And so we kind of had a pretty good idea that's what she was going to tell us that day.
Yeah.
And so it didn't come as a huge shock at that point. Like I said, it came more as a relief at that point. And I had done, I was like, okay, Parkinson's, tremors, okay, what do they do to treat it? And so I was digging into the medications and stuff, and so at least by that day when the neurologist told me I had Parkinson's, I at least was aware of the medications and the treatment, and she was able to ask me, okay, here's our options. And I was working at the time, and so I said, and she had, of course, given me a carbidopa levodopa pill in the office to see how that helped. And I was like, after that 30, 40 minutes, whatever, when it kicked in, I was just like, holy cow, I haven't felt like this in forever. And plus I was working. So I said, I just want to go on CL. I didn't want the side effects of the agonist and stuff like that. And so I went straight on CL, and then we went home, and I just started kind of educating myself more on the disease. And of course, it made us take a step back too to rethink our lives and what this was going to look like. Because every couple kind of has plans, and what as we grow older, where do we want to end up, and that kind of stuff. And so that definitely put a pretty good dent in the plans that
Yeah,
we kind of
curveball.
laid out for ourselves. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, 44. Yeah, I mean, you're just starting to think about like, we're going to get older at some point. What do we want to do in retirement? And then you put this curveball in there. I can't imagine that mind shift. And so you were
Yeah.
still working at the time. Did you come out to your employer back then?
I did. I did to my local boss, right away, because we had built a pretty good relationship, and so I felt like, being in that office and people being able to see my tremor and stuff, no one ever really said anything to me, but I did inform my boss not immediately, but within a few weeks. And then I'd say probably after about 6 months, I notified the owner and that kind of thing. And at that time, they were truly a very family-oriented business, and so I didn't fear any repercussions. I was, able to say that, it's controlled by medication, and I'm doing okay. And of course, I still didn't have the full spectrum and gamut of what Parkinson's brings and that diagnosis. And they were incredibly supportive, very, very supportive. We started doing annual car shows at our location to raise money for our local Parkinson's Lone Star Parkinson Society,
That's
and
cool.
they pretty much wrote a blank check, like whatever you need, get it, and so it was, yeah, it was really cool.
That is
I
very
was
cool.
fortunate because I know a lot of people are not and cannot disclose that type of diagnosis for fear of some type of retribution
Yeah.
or some kind of consequences. So even though, yeah, companies technically can't do it,
Yeah.
they can find ways. So
Well, that's awesome. I'm really happy for you that you could be yourself in your workplace and at home.
mhm.
When did you start to learn about the benefits of exercise, and what was your decision in that realm?
I would say probably about that same time, 6 months in, I had finally decided to attend a support group. We had a good, really great local support group there. I was in New Braunfels, Texas at the time, just outside of San Antonio. And I had done some research, like, is there support groups? What is there? And I found their Facebook page, and on the pictures, of course, all I saw was what I considered old people, you know. And I was like, uh, I don't want to go there and stare at my future, but I had reached out to the gentleman who was running this support group, and so he kept emailing me, I would say probably about once a week, saying,
Good.
"Hey, when are you going to attend? When are you going to attend?" And so finally, the Saturday came around that me and my wife decided, you know what, let's go and check it out. And it was one of the best things that ever happened for me in my Parkinson's journey. It really was. These people were tremendous. There was a couple other young onset people there, so I didn't realize, and so it was kind of nice to be able to meet them.
Mhm.
But the older onset, um, they just, man, I'd learned so much from them. And then that's when I started hearing about exercise and therapies and the, LSVT big and loud and yoga and I almost said Mai Tai, but the Tai Chi.
I see you.
And I love a good Mai Tai. But um, and so I was like, okay. And so I'm looking online for these exercise programs, and they're all during the daytime. And I'm working, and that's when my anger set in, or
Mm.
not, I would say anger, but my real frustration.
Frustration.
And then also, as I was digging in all that, I'm going, man, people don't know shit about young onset Parkinson's disease. And there's not a ton of information out there.
Yep.
I had stumbled across the Davis Finney Foundation website, which I really appreciated and still do. I'm a Davis Finney ambassador, but I appreciated that they looked at it from the perspective of, living your best life now with Parkinson's. And, you know, so I got some information sent to me from them. And of course, all the foundations, the Parkinson's Foundation, ADPA, those are probably the big three, Michael J. Fox, which they had some resources, but not a ton, because of course their focus is different.
Yeah,
And
more research based.
And so, anyway, so I just, I got really frustrated about the exercise part of it not being available to me. And long story short, I got really heavily involved in this support group and also the Lone Star Parkinson's Society, eventually becoming vice president and served as president on the board of that foundation. And while I was vice president, the leader of the support group, his name was Tommy Dubuque. And he kind of became I called him my Parkinson's dad. We became very close. And so me and him went on a mission because we knew about Rocksteady boxing and stuff. So we went on a mission to find a local gym and get somebody certified. Lone Star Parkinson's Society was going to pay for it. We were going to fund the uh, whoever we found to go back to Indiana and get certified. And um, we visited probably 4 or 5 gyms, and we finally got one that was like, yeah, we're definitely interested in this. And so we finally got that going, and I made sure to let them know that, hey, there's also a young onset community that's still working that needs this exercise as well. And so they were willing to do a class in the evenings, 2 nights a week.
Good for you.
And so, yeah, so I still look back on that as a pretty proud moment
Yeah.
for Tommy, bringing that in, and that Rocksteady boxing class is still going today. And I don't think they have the evening classes anymore. Unfortunately, and I don't want to make it sound like I was the driving force behind the young onset community there, but when I got promoted to be a branch manager up in the Dallas Fort Worth area, the young onset group that we had started and the boxing class and all that, it kind of faded away. And so I don't think they do an evening class anymore. And that young onset group really doesn't meet anymore. This was 7 6 7 years ago. But it's still there, and of course, some of those young onset are now, getting up in my age, I'm 56 now, and so at least that stuff will be there for them when they're ready. And so anyway, and going to that class and starting to do those exercises, I mean, it kicked my ass. But and what I thought was interesting, because all I'd read was, oh, a lot of testimony was, oh, I go to these exercise classes or I go to these boxing classes and my tremors go away and I feel great. And every time that I went boxing after I got done, I would start tremoring like nobody's business. But it was just, that was the result of it. But it didn't last a long time.
Right.
And usually by the time I would get home, the tremors would calm down and stuff. But I was like, what the hell? Why am I the weird one here?
Yeah, no, that seemed to be pretty common, and it depends on the individuals, right? I mean, we had
Yes.
back in been in the rock steady world for 20 years, and we would see both. We'd see people that came in slumped over, hardly walking, and then literally jogged to their cars, and other people just think because of the surge of all the hormones and the adrenaline and all the craziness that happens in those classes, we would
Yeah.
warn them, your tremor could be worse for the next couple hours or the next day. But eventually the exercise does help subside and keep those things in check. So yeah, it's a very individualized experience, if you will. But
Mm.
let me ask you something. So you said there's still a pretty prominent, and of course they're aging, the young onset folks that were diagnosed around the time that you were. But have you seen or have you met another young onset group, maybe a decade younger than you? And could that be a catalyst to why you decided to get on social media to continue to be an advocate for young onset folks?
Well, I'll kind of backstory on all the advocacy part just a little bit. It's not real long. Through my research and all this and finding, I just got incredibly frustrated with the lack of just the general knowledge about Parkinson's in the
Yeah,
public, in the community, just in the world. And and of course, I'm educating myself at the same time, but I never got this fear of, this could be me but at the same time, my frustration grew and I was like, God, how do I get this out? And so I started a blog because back then blogs were kind of the thing. I mean, TikTok wasn't around. I mean, I was on Facebook. I think I was on Instagram, but at the time, Instagram was just, basically people showing pictures of their
yeah,
dinner, their lunch,
yeah.
or
Filtered pictures of vacation,
yeah, there
whatever.
was no videos on Instagram. And so I thought, I got to write about this. I at least got to get it out in some way. And so I started the blog I thought, what am I going to call this, And I just decided with my attitude and my punk rock background that I was going to call it Punk Rock Parkinson's.
Yeah, be
And
yourself,
so that,
man.
yeah. And so that's what I did. And and I wrote in the blog pretty regularly, almost probably once a month for a while. But then when I got promoted and sent up to the Dallas Fort Worth area, that kind of went to the wayside just because I was so busy and it was an extremely stressful job. And my wife was working full time as a nurse at a doctor's office. And we, at that time, um, it was just, we kind of got all out of all the advocacy, I wasn't even involved in a support group up in that area. There was a rock steady boxing class there, but it was early Saturday mornings and it was a bit of a drive from where we were in Arlington.
You were
I
kind
think,
of like starting over with your Parkinson's journey, it sounds like.
yeah, in a way, yeah, but I was so focused on the job that I didn't really think much about it. But on occasion, I would still write in there or give, an update or whatever. And long story short, I ended up having to step down from that position because I had a very stressful couple days at that job, and my symptoms had come on full force. I had already had DBS by this point, deep brain stimulation, and I had maxed out my adjustments, and so I had to leave work and go home because I couldn't function. I could hardly walk. I could hardly talk. I was tremoring. I was just a mess, and Anyway, I was able to get an appointment with my MDS, and the system I have, we can do remote programming. So he was able to get me right and back on. And but the next day, I still had to stay home because when I go through those major adjustments with my DBS, it wears me out. And but at the same time, my MDS looked at me and he said, "You may want to consider." Um, Doing something different because the stress of this position is only going to or could possibly increase the rate of your progression.
Gonna exacerbate. Yeah.
Yeah, and so um, at that time, the company I was working for was coming out with a new department, an estimating department, and so I took a position there as working from home.
Nice.
And with that, we ended up moving toward the Houston area because that's where my wife's parents were at, and they were going through some struggles, and so we wanted to be there for them. And and even then, I still didn't really do much with my advocacy. We were busy on the weekends, and I knew about the Houston Area Parkinson's Society, but again, we were kind of outside of Houston, and it was going to be a jaunt to get to meetings and stuff like that. And if anybody knows Houston traffic, it's just hell. So ultimately, we ended up um, we had 2 acres and kind of a farm, and we had chickens and alpacas and goats and guard dogs and stuff like that. And it got to a point where every weekend we were having to do something out there, fixing something, or just tending to the animals and that kind of stuff. And my wife, we finally decided that this was going to be a lot of work for me to keep being out there. And at the same time, the position I had, they cut our pay, and the property became unaffordable. And so we decided to move to the Corpus Christi area. And we were fortunate enough to stay with some friends till we sold our house outside of Houston. And I would say about a few months after living there, I was on TikTok because people on occasion would send these videos, and I thought TikTok was for teenagers. I really, and so I didn't really pay much attention to it. And so I got on there and I'm, watching videos. It's like, oh, this is kind of fun. And then one night I just decided, you know what, I'm going to make a video. What the hell? And so I did that. And I found a huge Parkinson's community on there. And it's just continued to grow and grow. And, I'm nothing fancy. I can't dance, so I don't do any kind of dance videos. I don't,
TikTok's moving away from all that.
yeah, thankfully, yeah.
Yeah.
But I would just do videos recording and talking about my journey and what I'm dealing with, my frustrations and different things. And so that became my outlet. And I named it Punk Rock Parkinson's. And so yeah, that was probably 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, maybe. And so now here we are. And then February 25, the company eliminated my position. And so that was a big hit financially and just to me personally. It probably took me a good 8, 10 months to get over that, but I still would put out videos and things like that. And then
Do you feel, maybe a personal question, but did you feel like your Parkinson's was a contributor to that decision for them?
I feel like that might have been part of it. I was also being very vocal about the pay cut up to the owners, and by this time the son had taken over the company, so it was going much more corporate. And um, I felt like I was doing well in my job. I never had any corrective action or any, hey, we need to talk. How are you doing? Anything like that. And
Were there other departments that were cut, other employees at that time?
no,
Just you.
Yeah. Yep. I was the only one. So between me trying to kind of stand up for my people, or not my people, but my coworkers in our department, and I think the Parkinson's, because I was having to start to take not a lot, but a few more days off because I was having some bad days where I knew I would not be able to function. And last thing I wanted to do was put out an estimate and screw up on it and cost the company a bunch of money, you know.
Yeah.
So that anyway, that could have been a factor. I can't prove that, and I don't really have this big
Want to go
desire.
down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, they have a very good HR department, which most companies do, and they have their ways of covering their tracks. So it
So
is what it is.
been able to get on disability, Social Security disability to help
I
your family?
Yeah, that's has been a hell of a process. The Me and my wife talked, and immediately, of course, that day that I got laid off, and I started looking and trying to think, God, what jobs can I even do now? Because I can't go stand at a counter. I can't, I had a big lumber industry background, building background, and and then this company was in the generator world, and that's a stressful business. And and so between talking with my wife and my mom, I'm like, I don't know what I could do. And even if I did find something, yeah, I wouldn't be making what I was making. And so ultimately, the three of us got on a FaceTime call, and we were talking to my mom, just asking for her advice. And she said, I think you just need to go on disability now. And so I started that process, and actually, that was March of that year, 2025. And just this past, well, July 24th, I found out I got approved for disability just two
Yes,
weeks.
man. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is a hard process. It's a difficult process. And that's it, even though it's a government thing, it's handled state to state, and each state can take basically as long as they want, and
Seen a lot of people struggle through that process that are just too young to even be even have would have thought that they would have had to pursue that. Oh, I'm really
yeah,
happy for you.
yeah, thank you.
We only have about 8 minutes left,
Oh,
so
no.
I know these things go by quick. So thank you for being so open and interested in Red Tulip for Parkinson's awareness and what we're trying to do. And it sounds like it's in line with what you've always tried to do, which is coordinate and get your people together. Um, and we would like to be pushing more young onset people to come out and have that awareness and be open instead of isolated about their disease so that more young people will come out. And then, like you said, the general public just really understanding that this is not just an old person's shaking disease. That's been the mindset. That still seems to be the mindset. So thank you for being interested. And then the other thing I want to say is I just think it's awesome. We keep getting introduced to all these social media influencers. I mean, that is the new blog, and the level of outreach that you guys have is astronomical and very brave of you. So, what does the Red Tulip mean to you, and how can we partner better to make this more of a global awareness mission?
Well, I think I was so excited when I saw what Red Tulip was trying to do. They're, trying to get that national symbol and really worldwide symbol for Parkinson's disease, because, we've always had the tulip and that PD tulip, and then the gray ribbon, which I never really cared for. I understood why they were trying to do it, trying, kind of like the pink ribbon for
Yep.
breast cancer, and even, like the puzzle piece for autism. I love that. And so to come across y'all and to find out that, okay, we need to get this one symbol nationally recognized, and then globally recognized to the point where, um, like you say, eventually it can just be this,
Yeah.
and no wording,
Yeah.
just be the red tulip. And that I love that, because it would be cool to have someone come up and say, "I saw the red tulip on the back of your car," or "I see the red tulip on the pin," or whatever, and I know you have Parkinson's, or I have Parkinson's too, and so that can, I think, if the goal that we can reach that goal, with you guys to get that nationally recognized, will be a big help and a big calling symbol for people to maybe be a little more bold and a little more outspoken and not be afraid to approach somebody
Yeah.
in public, and so that's what it means to me, is just getting one symbol under one shitty disease to get people to be able to talk and
Yeah.
communicate about it
Comfortable.
without having to feel embarrassed or odd or whatever the case. Because particularly in the young onset community with people that are still working, there's a lot of them that I'll hear or see a video, or they'll tell me, yeah, I couldn't come out to my work, and I didn't talk about my Parkinson's with my work for 10 years. And I'm like, I couldn't have been able to do that with the way my journey went. And I'm just always blown away by that. And not that they could suddenly wear a red tulip to work and be okay, but outside of work and then through the entire community, just to see this symbol and know and be more aware, and then to the general public that doesn't have the disease, because we all know when they see a pink ribbon they think breast cancer, and so the goal to get this red tulip symbol out, and the first thing I think of is, oh, Parkinson's disease.
Think that's exactly right. And I think, the general public, we still have conversations with people, not very many, who have said, I don't know anybody with Parkinson's disease. And then I'll think two things. One, you will soon, or two, you probably do know somebody with Parkinson's disease who hasn't disclosed that they have Parkinson's to you. So I think the awareness is so important for the general public that this isn't very scary. Go up and talk to somebody. You guys, most of you guys are an open book, and want to be asked questions. I know I would want to be asked questions, but it's got to feel so good for the Parkinson's community to know that eventually, hopefully, you're not just secluded to your city and your support group and your rock steady group, but this is like becoming a global movement, and it's going to take a village. So that's why voices like yours are so important. And so we just want to thank you for your bravery and your support, and the fact that you get this simple concept. We're not out there competing for dollars. We just want to unite the community under this symbol for all the exact reasons that you just stated. So thank you, Darryn, for being so brave. And what does it say about over your shoulder there?
Oh, if I can,
I don't know if we'll have to censor that out, but we're all adults here, hopefully.
yeah, yeah.
Some of the kids on TikTok still.
Just
Oh,
yeah, just make this one for 18 plus, and
yeah, there
you
you go. We'll put a
have to
little
censor.
disclaimer on it.
Yeah, there you go. But
Well,
yeah, I mean that, I mean, just those words. I mean, I've been saying them for years, but then to have,
you're not the
you know,
first.
yeah, but to have Michael J. Fox and on Shrinking and Harrison Ford and those guys to say that, that has become a hashtag.
Right, right.
But yeah,
So, real quick, just to wrap us up, in a nutshell, if I came to you, um, I'm new to Parkinson's, I'm newly diagnosed, what would you say to somebody who's young onset, newly diagnosed in that moment?
I would give them the three things that I was told by my mentor, Tommy. I lost him 5 years ago, unfortunately.
I'm sorry to hear that.
When the first thing he told me was, number one, take your medication on time at the same time every day. Be very consistent. Number two, um, if your doctor is not working for you, fire them and find another one, because our neurologists and movement disorder specialists, they're working for us. And then the third one that I would have add, and it's really starting to kind of take on its own thing these days, is do not go at this alone. There are so many single people with Parkinson's that are living by themselves, and there's a community out there. There's whether it's social media or in person, please don't go at this alone. So those are the three things that I would stress to a person newly diagnosed.
That's awesome. That comforts me. I mean, I don't even have Parkinson's, but you just nailed it. You got that down. So, all right, we're about out of time, Mr. Punk, but hey, thanks for sharing your heart, your story, your vulnerability, and also your passion. And I hope that being able to be on disability now, that kind of allows you to do what you're probably meant to do, which is become an advocate again. Keep your voice heard. People are hearing you. You probably don't even know that are hearing you. So thanks. Keep it up, man. Get your butt back to the gym too. I want to say that.
Yes, I'm going to. I do attend our local Rock City boxing class here twice a week. So,
Okay,
but
good. Okay.
there are some other things I'm going to be doing in addition to that. And now that I have a little more income to be able to do those things. So, and I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. And I love you guys and what you're doing in the community. And that means a lot. I'm always careful on who I kind of stand up with. And you guys are one. Red Tulip is one that I am so proud to even be remotely connected to.
Yeah, we felt that way after meeting and talking with you. It's just a natural fit. So we have more work to do, my friend, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you
Yes,
at different events and maybe we'll get the Mohawk into a little red tulip for maybe some of those upcoming DC policy events and things like that. That'd be cool.
absolutely.
All right,
Yes.
guys, we gotta
All
go,
right.
Mr. Punk, but thank you so much. Keep your hands up.
Will do.
Together we bloom.
Yes. Talk to you soon.
Take care, bud.